Hi, boys and girls. It is good to see you this afternoon, or at least good to talk to you. Today we're going to look at dividing polynomials using long division. Tomorrow I'm going to show you a different method. It's called synthetic division, and you're going to love it. But just bear with me for today because we do have to do this as well. So we're going to, algorithm for dividing by long division is simply the same that you used in elementary school. So my son came home when he was in 5th grade, and his 5th grade teacher lives 2 doors down from me, so that's kind of interesting. And he said, this is how my 5th grade teacher showed me how to divide, and I liked it, and so I've used it ever since. So the algorithm is this. We divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So say that with me. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And that works for problems like what you did in 5th grade, like this. And it also works for polynomials. So we're going to start by recalling this problem that you probably did something similar to this when you were in elementary school. And then remember, the algorithm is divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So the first thing we want to do is we want to rewrite it. We want our divisor to be on the outside of the house and our dividend to be inside the house. Okay? So this is called our divisor, just a little bit of terminology, and this is called the dividend. And I don't know if I'm spelling that right, but that's what it's called. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we want to look at, first thing we want to, can 12 go into 2? No, 2 is smaller than 12, so we can't really divide 12 by 2. So we have to look at the first 2 numbers, 25. What number can I multiply by 12 and get something close to 25? Well, if I multiply 12 by 1, I get 12, and I'll have a big remainder. But if I multiply 12 by 2, I get 24. So that was my first step, divide. What's the second step? Multiply. So I'm going to multiply 12 times 2. And so 12 times 2 is 24. I've already done it because it's so innate to me. I couldn't wait. I just did it. So 12 times 2 is 24. What's our next part of our algorithm? Subtract. So I'm going to subtract those 2 numbers. 25 minus 24 is 1. And the last part of that algorithm is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down that 16. So how many times does 12 go into 16? Once. So 1 times 12 is 12. So I did it again. I multiplied, and now I'm going to subtract. Because we go back to the algorithm, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So I divided 12 into 16, 1. Then I multiplied 1 times 12 and got 12. And now my next part of that is to subtract. And the last thing we're going to do again is bring down. So we're going to bring down that 7, and we get 47. So how many times does 12 go into 47? You could probably do this in your calculator. It's going to give you a decimal, but take that whole number. So 12 goes into 47, I think, for 3 times, because 12 times 4, I think, is 48. And I am cheating because I can do calculus really well, but my adding and subtracting skills are not the best. So yes, it goes into that 3 times. So 3 times 12. So we divide it. Now we're going to multiply. 3 times 12 is 36. I subtract, and I get 11. Now 12 does not go into 11, so this is my remainder. Which means that 12, because I have a remainder, 12 does not go into 2,467 evenly. So we write our answer as 213, and then we write the remainder 11 over 12. So my answer would be to that 213 and 11/12. And that is my answer. So we're going to use that same algorithm to divide polynomials. You ready? So remember, what's our saying? How do we do this? We divide. Let's get a better color. We divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Say that with me. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So the first thing we need to do is get our algorithm, get it to look like we want it to look. So we're going to put the divisor outside the house and the dividend inside the house. Okay, so my first question is, what can I multiply by m to get m squared? Okay, well, m, because m times m is m squared. So the first thing I did was divide. What's my second thing? Multiply. So now I'm going to multiply, and when I multiply, I have to distribute. I'm going to multiply both of these by m. So m times m is m squared, and m times -8 is -8m. So I divided, I multiplied. Now I'm going to subtract. Now to subtract, I suggest that you use a different color, because subtraction is just adding the opposite. So to subtract, I'm just going to change both of these signs and add together. So that is my subtraction by changing both of those signs. Notice they're both red now. So that indicates that I changed the sign so I can subtract. So when I add these together, m minus m squared is 0, and -7 minus -8m is actually 1m. Okay, so I divided, I multiplied, I subtract, and my last step is bring down. So I'm going to bring down -11. And we do the process again. First, I start with dividing. I divide m times into m, and I get 1. Now I am going to multiply what that look like, m minus 8. I'm going to multiply 1 times m minus 8. So I'm going to multiply this 1 times m, and I'm going to multiply this 1 times -8. And that gives me m minus 8. Then I subtract. So remember, when I subtract, I change the signs and add. So subtraction is just changing the signs and adding. So when I add those together, that zeroes out, and then I'm left with -3 as my remainder. So how do I write that? My answer then is m plus 1. I got that from there. And then plus my remainder over my divisor. Or I could write that as m plus 1 minus 3 over m minus 8. And don't ask me where I got that 18 from. I do not know. It's late in the day. Okay? Alrighty, boys and girls. So it's a little, it's got some steps to it, but that's okay. I know you can do this. You're smart kids. You can do this. Okay, I'm going to use a different color because I've been using that green all day. All right, so let's do another example. So we have to, this is our divisor, so that goes outside the house, and inside the house goes the dividend. Okay, we start by asking ourselves, we start by dividing. So we're going to ask ourselves, what can I multiply by n to get n squared? You are correct, n. So then I'm going to multiply n by n, and I'm going to multiply n by 5. So I've divided, then I multiplied. What is the next step? Subtract. And to subtract is simply adding the opposite. So I'm going to change the signs of both of those and then add them together. That zeroes out, and I'm left with 5n. And what's the next step? Bring down. So I'm going to bring down the 18. And we start the process over again. Divide. N, what can I multiply by n to get 5n? 5. So now I'm going to multiply both terms by 5. So I get 5n plus 25. My next step is to subtract. And remember, when I subtract, I am adding the opposite. So that becomes the 5 in, 0 out. I have 18 minus 25 is negative 7. I can't go any further because I no longer have n terms. So my answer is n plus 5 minus 7 over n plus 5. Okay? Alrighty. Let's look at problem number 6. Do you see anything different about problem 6? Yes, it's a binomial and it's missing a term. So in order to do the long division, we're going to have to make sure it has 3 terms. So I'm going to rewrite this as a squared minus 0a minus 28 divided by a minus 5. Now, the reason I have to put the 0 there because I need each term represented. So if the term is missing, I replace it with 0, whatever the variable is. So again, rewriting this, I get a minus 5 divided into a squared minus 0a minus 28. So what can I multiply by a to get a squared? You got it, a. So the first step was to divide. Next step, multiply. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply a by both terms. I get a squared minus 5a. Again, remember that subtracting is adding the inverse. So I'm going to change my signs and add them together. So doing that, I get the a squared 0 out. I get 5a minus 28 because I brought down my 28. Bring down. Last step. All right, let's do that again. What can I multiply by a to get 5a? 5. So again, I multiply. I divide it first and then I multiply. So this is 5a. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Okay, so subtraction is changing the signs and adding. So I'm going to subtract those and I'm left with negative 3. So my answer is a plus 5 minus 3 over a minus 5. Okay? We're going to do one more. We're going to do number 10. Number 10 got all kinds of things going on. I like to leave you with one that's just, it's going to make us think for a minute. So one thing about 10, it is missing a term. And then also we have this 7x here, which is really not going to change anything. We're going to do it the exact same way. But let's just go ahead and rewrite it. So we're going to have 7x plus 7 divided into 42x squared. Remember, I have to replace that with the 0x minus 33. So what can I multiply by 7x to get 42x squared? Well, we know it's going to be something x. But what can I multiply by 7 to get 42? And if you need to use your calculator for that, that's fine. So we do 42 divided by 7, and we get 6. Why is that marked there? Because it looks like a negative, and it's not supposed to be a negative. Let's just redo all of that because that was bothering me. So that's 6x. Okay? So we divide it. What's our next step? Divide, multiply. So 6 times 7 is 42x squared. And 6x times just plain 7 is 42x. Divide, multiply, and now we're going to subtract. Remember, subtracting is just adding the opposite. So we're going to make both of those negative, and then we add those together. The 42x squared and the minus 42x squared zeros out. I have 0 minus 42x, so that's just going to be minus 42x. And what's my next step? You got it. Bring down. So what can I multiply by 7 to get negative 42? X. Well, 7x by negative 6. So we multiply. We've divided. Now we multiply both terms. So I get negative 42x. And 7 times negative 6 is also negative 42. We subtract by changing our signs and adding. So we get the 42x's 0 out. 42 minus 33. And again, you can do this on your calculator if you need to, because I'm doing it on mine right now, is 9. And since there are no more x's, I can't go any further. So my answer is 6x minus 6 plus 9 over 7x plus 7. Okay? All right. I've done a couple examples, and I would like to give you an opportunity to do a couple examples. So I want you to pause the video, and I would like for you to do problems 1 and 2. Remember, 11 and 12. Remember in problem 11, you have a term missing. So you have to replace that with 0x. So pause the video and come back in a second, and I'll show you the answer. Okay, welcome back. I am not actually going to do them. I think I have the answers down here. I'm just going to show you the answers. So this is the answer to 11 and 12. If you did not get those answers, please feel free to text me or remind, or make sure you note that in your exit ticket today that you missed problems 11 and 12 when you did them on your own. I want to do one more problem with you, and it's a problem where we have 4 terms. And how do we handle 4 terms? Just like we handle 3. So I'm just going to break this up. I'm going to just leave a little bit more space as well. So we have 5k minus 4 outside the house, and 50k cubed plus 10k squared minus 35k minus 7. Okay? So we do it exactly the same way. We're just going to have an extra step. So what can I multiply by 5k to get 50k? 10k squared, because this is k cubed, and I need this to be times k. So I need k squared times k cubed. And one of the things you want to notice, I probably should have mentioned that earlier, is it's generally going to start in this column. So what did I say the answer was? 10k squared. It's generally going to start in that column. Okay, so now we multiply. We divide it, now we multiply. So we multiply both terms, and we get 50k cubed minus 40k squared. We subtract by adding the inverse. We're going to get some pretty big numbers here. And so when we add the inverse, we get 50, these 0 out, and we get 50k squared minus 35k, because I brought that down. Okay, so I subtracted, and then I brought down the 35. So 5k, what can I multiply to get 50k squared? Well, this is similar to what we were doing earlier. So this is going to be plus 5k. Notice how my variables are lining up. This is k squared and this is k. So when I multiply, and that's wrong. Why didn't anybody tell me that was wrong? That should be 10k. So now I multiply, I get 50k squared minus 40k. Once again, I change my signs and add. So this zeroes out, that zeroes out, and I'm left with 5k. And what's my last step? Bring down. So bringing that down, how many times does 5k go into 5k? We want to say just once. Multiplying that out, I get 5k minus 4. I subtract by changing the signs, and I'm left with negative 3. So my answer is 10k squared plus 10k plus 1 minus 3 over 5k minus 4. Okie dokie. All right, so you're going to finish your IXL on this. There's lots of practice on the classroom if you need more practice with this. And this may take doing it a couple of times to get practice. Okay, guys, I will see you later. Bye.